It's June the 19th, 2018. It's 7 years after the Fukushima nuclear meltdown. I'm Dana Durnford. I'm on the Fukushima marine sailing expeditions. You can find more of that documentation at this website where you're watching the video to. Beautiful Girl by Dana on YouTube. You can link over from my website, thenuclearproctologist.org. And so I'm just going to do a PowerPoint presentation. I'm heading back to sea. I've tried to get out of Queen Charlotte Islands here twice, and stormy weather has been uncooperative, and I've been forced to come back in. It's been very expensive and very time consuming. We've been at sea for 75 days, and I haven't done any of these presentations, so it's about time I done one of these today for sure. Now, this is reactor 3. As you can see, this is completely destroyed building. They're claiming that there's no harm, yet they picked up 30 million of these 1-ton bags. 30 million, folks. That's not a joke. That's the real deal. So they had an event for sure. Now, Fukushima governor strongly demands TEPCO decommission, dismantle all 10 nuclear reactors. That's an interesting statement. So why would you dismantle all 10 nuclear reactors? Well, because they were the ones that were hemorrhaging into the environment, and you weren't told about the majority of them. To your right is reactor 4. You can see reactor 4 to the bottom parts of the picture is leveled. The building was 3 times the height of what you're looking at there. It's all gone. And as a comparison, I used a 190-foot... Well, actually, the building to your left is only 110 feet high. The building to your right was originally 190 feet high. And just as a comparison, you can see there's a dramatic difference. This is reactor 4, and you might want to ask yourself, why are the people on the right pretending they're in the building on the left when the building on the left don't exist? So that alone, why would CNN and ABC and BBC and CBS and many more of them send out their reporters, put it up on the media, and claim that there's no damage and that they're taking fuel at the pool when to your left it's obvious the building doesn't even exist? That should give you pause, and it did for us, and that's why we're on these expeditions, because of the dramatic and the vicious and malicious lies that have been told. Your media doesn't exist. These are 100% propaganda machines. Now, the reason they didn't tell you anything is because they're insane people. They're actually insane, and you think they should cover it up rather than tell you the truth. But how are we going to come up with solutions if we don't talk about the actual reality? If we fake it, how are we ever going to come up with a solution? And so that's what I'm trying to do, is show that there's an issue, and we've done this many times, showed the issue, and today we're doing it again. Fukushima plume model shows 1 million becquerels square meter over the west coast. Now, the nuclear industry, as you can see down here, tried to bury the truth, but 1 million becquerels a square meter is a catastrophic event, and this really did happen, and so there is a repercussion. Now, if you look at the history, there's 15,000 abandoned uranium mines just in the Navajo, which is not their original name, but it's the name North American or the USA gave these natives. They don't recognize the name, but we'll call it the Navajo because people recognize that name. So 15,000 abandoned uranium mines, yet they tell you it's clean, green, too cheap to meter, is an interesting documentation. TEPCO executives purposefully delayed pumping seawater into the reactors. Now, the reason they didn't pump the seawater into the reactors is because it's catastrophic to do that. The sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyballs created by this ingest the isotopes, or the atoms with the isotopes, and we'll talk more about that as we get through this. And so the diagrams will show you the severity of it that I'm showing you today. You can see the bags. There's many of these different pictures. Once again, why did they fake being in a reactor? Because it's catastrophic, and there's no excuses for that. There's zero excuses to fake to being in a building. This is not what media is supposed to do. Media is absolutely, positively, unequivocally not supposed to do something like that. We can't come up with solutions if we fake it and pretend that there's nothing wrong. So, Fukushima report introduced by top official. Other reactors in considerably severe conditions, 14 total. 14 reactors. Extreme situation. Not much has been broadcast, right? And we aggregated the documentation of these reactors. Almost entire ground level of Northern Hemisphere was covered in radioactive fission products after 3/11. This is, once again, catastrophic. This meant the vegetation, the insects, the mammals, animals, humans, the population, everything was being coated by the radiation. And what happened. We can't change that, but we can change the future by admitting we have an issue and dealing with it and come up with solutions. But as long as we fake it like they're doing, we'll never have a solution, we'll never have a future, neither will the other 8 million species on the planet. We owe the other 8 million species on the planet. We are the guardians of our planet, and it's about time we took that challenge. And it's, at what point do we admit we got a problem? So the building on your right is the official building. The building to your left is the official building. Now you can see at the top of the building these red pools. These are pools, big deep swimming pools with decades of reactor cores. They take the reactor core out, they put it in the pool at the top of the building. And they've been doing this for decades now. The top of the building is gone. So all those reactor cores, not just the one that was running in these buildings, but the reactor cores at the top of the buildings are also gone too. So there's a catastrophic amount, and the disgusting media solution was to bury it and pretend it didn't happen. But that's the death sentence. That's the death knell of the planet by doing that. We can't have that continue. Think about this headline here: concerned half of Japan to be covered in nuclear waste, and that those 60 and older should be prepared to die. What kind of statement is that? How did we ever get to a position where if a building goes down, everybody 60 years of age and older will be sacrificed? Because you can't solve the problem, so why would you have it on the planet? And if you're going to lie about it, how are we going to come up with any solutions, really? With 7 million people on the planet, if everybody is aware of it, we deal with it. We come up with solutions. Just because they're in charge doesn't mean that the rest of us don't have an obligation. Now you're going to hear a bit of background noise. I'm on the ocean. I'm on a boat. There's not very much room. I've done everything I can to mitigate that, but let's continue with the story. So those 60 and over should be prepared to die. Now they picked up 30 million of these 1-ton bags. Nobody should be stood up there. This is catastrophic to stand up there, because you're getting gamma, X-rays, and neutron from all the radiation around you. These are the homeless, the destitute, and the victims of society. This is not Harvard University or Yale University or Stanford University or MIT University or any other institution. And at some point we're going to have to deal with it. So when I show you these pictures, you have to appreciate the significance that these are rice fields, and they're growing rice right alongside the bags, and they're shipping it in other countries. We've covered this before I went on the ocean. And I'll be gone for another 4.5 months. I've been at sea for 75 plus days. You can't check fish with a Geiger counter. It doesn't work that way. Most of the isotopes can't be found with a Geiger counter. You can only find certain tracers. And so it's stupid to do that and then feed people. We got to deal with it. At some point we will, and now is the time to do it because hiding it away and lying about it is not a way to find solutions, okay? It's just not. And we need solutions, period. The EU Energy Commission, and they're called Fukushima apocalypse. Almost everything is out of control. This is a really true, fair statement. You got to think about the entire coastline was swept away. Over 600 miles of the coastline, up to 20 kilometers inland, was swept away. So it's very difficult to hook power back up to anything, because there's no power for 600 miles. And there's no infrastructure. The red is where people died, and the yellow are where people are missing. That's the 600 miles of the coastline. Nuclear power plants were in that same position, in that same area, right here. And these power plants have all seemed to been unable to go in what they call cold shutdown, and most likely melted down. That was hit away like they're doing with everything else. Now, the whole coastline was chewed up like a wood chipper. Keep that in mind as we talk about the rest of the story. Radiation around Fukushima levels where human vomits uncontrollably, and hair will be stripped from the body. This was true, and because these buildings were detonating, as you see, they pick up 30 million bags, so it's not hard to imagine this being a true story. They ran away and left their animals behind, because it's not like a banana. They ran away and left their groceries behind, because it's not like flying on an airplane. Think about this. They ran away and left, and they segregated people that were radiated, and other people couldn't go near them. They were so highly radiated. Well, that's death sentence for those people. When you're that radiated, they segregate you. You're going to die soon after. You're in real trouble. The whole country was like that, and now North America is like this. Even the pets, of course. And lots of people ran away and left their pets behind. And then they pacified everybody by pretending they were checking for radiation fallout. My apologies for having that particular picture there. It's not a very high quality picture. I don't know how that got in the mix. Steam coming from number 3 reactor live on NHK. Now the steam was coming out of the ground too. The reactors melted. Some of the reactors had melted down into the ground split, and the steam coming out of the ground was recorded at 10 sieverts, which is lethal doses at 3 and 4 sieverts. Now 10 sieverts is obviously an unbelievable dose. You will die soon after. So this is why Harvard University and Stanford University and Oxford University will never be on their site. And this is also why the picture I showed you earlier of media in a building alongside of this couldn't possibly be true. And the detonations through the fuel rods and the reactor cores all over the site. So nobody with any kind of nuclear knowledge was going to go near the site, or probably within 100 miles of it. It's just too deadly. And when you talk about 30 million one-ton bags throughout that country, you are talking about a real, an unbelievable event. High radiation forces the withdrawal of workers trying to restore power. Now the buildings were destroyed. How can you restore power to that building? So it was a fable to feed you those headlines. You can't restore power to buildings that don't exist. These buildings don't exist in the conventional term. They're completely gone. The inventory is all over the site. You can't restore power, and where would you get the power from when the whole country was destroyed? Water cannons unable to spray the reactors turn away because radiation levels are too high. Well, this was desperation, sending in water cannons, but there was nothing to spray water on, as you've seen in the previous picture. But this is an official picture of reporters going into a building that don't even exist in order to trick you and deceive you. So your media truly is the worst scum of this planet. They're absolutely unbelievable scumbags, hideous monsters. I mean, truly, got to be a hideous monster to perpetrate this upon our society. Once again, you can see there's no way to go into the building on the left. The building on the right unequivocally has nothing to do. This building here has nothing to do with the building on your left. Yet they claim it did. And this is unforgivable. This is absolutely 100% unforgivable that this was done to us. That these people done this to us, and that they're out there right now continuing to pretend that they're journalists and academics. It's sickening and despicable. What we face is a great unknown to all of mankind. 10 sieverts an hour outside, and levels must be... Now, the Geiger counter is maxed out at 10 sieverts, by the way. And so there's no way any nuclear experts is going near these places. They're only sending in the most vulnerable of society. How are we going to accomplish anything by doing that? It's absolutely... At some point, we're going to have to deal with this. And we don't deal with it by saying everybody over 60 should be prepared to die. The first to die should be all the nuclear experts and apologists. Once again, David Suzuki had said the building 4, this building here, if that collapsed, it was bye-bye Japan, and you should evacuate North America. Well, the building collapsed, as I showed you already, and it is bye-bye Japan, and we should evacuate North America. And how sick is it that we have them on our planet that has the capacity to do something like that to our little tiny speck of dirt in the solar system? Radioactivity at 10 million times usual levels at number 2. This is where they constantly say they're going to get the fuel at a number 2. But when you look at the original headlines, this was March 27, 2011. When you look at these headlines, you understand some of the lies much more severely. This is reactor 2. The heat signature in your top right-hand corner shows the building is in a complete meltdown all on its own, just because the building didn't collapse. So this reactor most likely melted straight down into the earth. It was active and running when the earthquake happened. And this is not tenable to keep pretending that there's not an issue. U.S. official fears Fukushima to be deadly for decades. It would be hard to describe how alarming this is right now. And what's alarming to me is that you would pick up 30 million one-ton bags, leave them there, and expect people to move back into the apartments next door. How cold are you to even consider that? How vicious are these people that are willing to do this to society? How inhumane of a society do they live in? How vicious are these people? It boggles my mind that people like this actually exist. High radiation levels around the plant The plant itself, not the reactor, but the plant. Prevented helicopters from dumping water on the spent fuel rods at Fukushima. Well, there was no way to dump water on a fuel pool because the fuel pool didn't exist. These were all meant to keep you in the dark and manipulate you. But when the helicopters, now in Chernobyl, 600 helicopter pilots died. You don't see that in the statistics of Chernobyl, do you? My apologies, you will hear some background noises. There's nothing I can do about it. I've been struggling for days to make this video, and I'm just going to have to make it today. In Chernobyl, this is one of the helicopters that fell out of the sky because it got too close to the reactors. Once again, these people to the right are pretending they're in the building on the left. If you get close to the building on your left, within 900 feet, you're getting a lethal dose. And so the people on the right have to answer to this country and to the planet at some point, and they will. You can't hide this for much longer. The death of the Pacific is now very, very evident. Fukushima reactors will have to be entombed, radioactive and deadly for thousands of years. For thousands of years. Yet they're claiming in the previous picture that they're in by the pool. Look at that. So I'm not the bad person for going out and investigating the coastline. They're the bad people for stopping people from investigating the coastline. They're the people who made people not think there was an issue. I looked at their laws and I said, okay, there's an issue, we better go investigate it. We covered thousands of headlines of the ocean before I actually went on the ocean. But 30 million one-ton bags is from 4 buildings is unprecedented. Surges in airborne radioactive releases gone on for years at Fukushima, and the emit here exceeded 25,000 times the normal level. This kind of number is radiation sickness will be right away, anything in that area. So the insects and animals that are left behind were decimated, and we have studies on that we're not going to be covering today, I don't think. So the steam you see coming out of there, this is lethal doses if you walk through it. That's a lethal dose. So only the homeless and the destitute, the victims of society, and the immigrants who don't speak the language, and those who are unable to comprehend or are deceived and manipulated will be there. Certainly not Harvard University. There will be no nuclear experts there. There will be no nuclear academics there. There will be none of the apologists there. None of those journalists are actually there because these are lethal doses. And at some point, we will deal with this. I've been vilified and demonized and marginalized and slandered and attacked and continually attacked. But I can't have that sway me. I have to get a job done. We have to find out how bad this is. And that's why I'm on the ocean doing the expeditions of the marine life. But at the same time, I have to warn society and make them understand. Once again, you can see the steam. So it coats everything. And even if the steam stopped right after this, everything is coated. So you can't walk through there forever because everything is now coated with radiation. And radiation doesn't stop pulsing every second forever, this kind of radiation. This is corium isotopes. You're looking at hundreds of thousands of years before it switches to another isotope. And this is why they picked up 30 million one-ton bags. Now, the 30 million one-ton bags, this is just a tiny fraction of them, but that should make you understand the significance, right? First they say there's no issues, but when you look at all these pictures, and there's thousands of these pictures of these storage facilities, there's over 120,000 of these facilities that you're looking at right here. 120,000 of these facilities where they're storing bags randomly throughout the prefecture. Yet they're telling everybody in the media there's no harm, there was no radioactive fallout, there was no contamination. At some point, this is going to blow up in everybody's face forever. We have to fight with everything we got for a future. Smoke and steam is rising from all reactor units. Workers were evacuated, and then they brought in the homeless, the destitute, and the victims of society, and the immigrants who don't speak the language. It's shocking, the betrayal. This is the 4 reactors of the apocalypse. It's right by the Pacific Ocean. My apologies for any background noises. It's out of my control. Dawn at Fukushima, May 11, 2011. Enhanced images exposes smoke and steam. Now, the smoke and steam from buildings number 2, 3, and 4, there was also from 1, but building 2, 3, 4, this steam is lethal doses. Just a single dose is a lethal dose. So you can call it smoke and steam all you want, but this is radioactive fallout hemorrhaging from detonated reactor cores and meltdowns of the fuel pools. And some of these fuel pools were spread out into the ocean with the detonations we see in the previous pictures of the explosions. These are heat signatures from all 4 buildings, what's left of them. 100% an event that we have to deal with. France says Japan had lost control and that the French should leave the country, because the radiation went throughout the country, 30 million one-ton bags. Now, you can see the destruction for 600 plus miles of the coastline. There was no way to get any infrastructure there. Everybody was in disarray. People needed to be rescued. And it took weeks to get into all these little patches and find the victims. And a lot of them perished because there was no help showed up. When you run away and you leave your supermarkets behind, your liquor stores full of liquor, your car lots full of cars, your music shops full of musical instruments, your banks full of money, your casinos full of money, your hospitals, we're left with patients in it. People ran away and left everything behind because it's not like a banana. It's not like walking in the sunshine. And it's not like getting on a bus. This is the homeless and the destitute, not Harvard University academics, not nuclear academics, not nuclear scientists, not the pro-nuclear apologists, but the victims of society headed to Fukushima, deceived and manipulated and coerced and threatened into going in there. Japan's emperor makes an unprecedented address, deeply worried about Fukushima. Now, a few days ago, he and his partner went to Fukushima. Now, this is an interesting story. Imperial couple passed the evacuation zone 5.8 kilometers from the Fukushima plant. 5.8 kilometers. That's an interesting statement using those words. And you can see the little vehicle down there. They're driving past all the bags. Look at that. And you'll hear noises in the background. My apologies. So the emperor passed through a difficult-to-return zone. Difficult-to-return zone, a never-to-return zone. There's no such thing as a difficult-to-return zone. So this is in order to try to trick people eventually into moving back in by calling it that name. It's unforgivable. A car carrying the emperor and empress runs on National Road number 6 in Minnesota, where we've seen 10 million becquerels a square meter, by the way. We've covered Minnesota on my site before. Bags containing radioactive soil are piled up along the road. See, this is unbelievable to even... The car was carrying the imperial couple was running on an expressway from Milwaukee to Minnesota in Fukushima Prefecture when it slowed down at a point 5.8 kilometers from the Fukushima No. 1 nuclear power plant, according to the Chamberlain of the Imperial Household Agency. Now, although the nuclear plant could not be seen through the rainy weather, they looked towards this direction without saying a word. So if you're 5.8 miles away and the media says, they looked towards where Fukushima plant was, I think at that point I would give up. I would never, ever, ever watch media or listen to media again. Because that is the stupidest thing that anybody could ever, and it's the stupidest statement anybody could ever say. But to put it in print, to actually put that in print, that 5.8 miles away, you couldn't see the plant, but we looked in the direction of it, somehow that warranted a paragraph. It's mind-boggling. You don't have journalists anymore. You have monsters. A journalist is a monster, period. There's no maybes about this. They passed the evacuation zone. Notice how they worded that. It's such a betrayal. Unprecedented phenomenon from using salt water in Fukushima reactors, forming new uranium compounds, able to travel long distances like carbon buckyballs. Well, what's going on is the carbon buckyballs from the sulfur, from the high heat, when you spray salt water on these high temperatures, like 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures that these reactor cores are, you created this sulfur buckyball. The buckyball is like a soccer ball. Think of a soccer ball, but extremely small, where it ingests the atom and they become like little super nuclear engines. They're very transportable, they're very mobile, they're very easy, they're not normally solutable in water, and they linger close to the ground. You breathe it in, and they stick to things because they're electrically charged. Like they'll stick to the liners of your lungs and burn a hole to it ultimately. So spraying salt water on the reactors was pure desperation because the reactors don't even exist. You can see the spray kind of stops right here, right? It's shocking. TEPCO data suggests that fission is ongoing. Truly scary that nobody in Japan seems to know the basic of reactor accident progression. So when these people don't even know what the reactor looks like, they think they're faking it. The people to the right are obviously faking the one to your left. And maybe I should stop the video for a few minutes and see if that knocking goes away next door. Okay, we'll pick back up here. Now, when you see these fake to the right, this is the media sent their reporters in there and sanctioned it. How can you ever trust these people under any circumstances for anything ever again? How can you allow them to get away with that? How can you sit there in silence and not raise your voice in objection to the fakery, to the malicious deception? Is beyond me. I can't just sit in silence. Radioactive releases may continue for a year or more even after fission has stopped. Well, it certainly did. It never stopped fissioning. It never stopped the meltdown, the chain reaction. And you're picking up 30 million bags. You should be doing that every single year forever. The only reason you picked up the bags was to deceive everybody and trick them into coming back. Fukushima nuclear plume covered most of North America, so we should be picking up the bags all over North America. Now over North Atlantic and the Caribbean and Canada's east coast, so all the way to the Canadian east coast at that point, they emitted. That was March 19th, 2011. These are some of the models. Anybody familiar with me would have recognized these models from my site many times, showing you different models. 200 trillion becquerels a kilogram in the fuel rod material near Tokyo. The material spread globally, persists for a long time in living organisms, must consider disastrous health effects. See, there's a lot of people that did speak out, but they muddled the water so much. I have nothing but contempt for it now. This is another model of the radioactive plume. The plume only took a couple of days to cover the entire ocean. As you can see down here, it covers the ocean from one end to the other, and it continues to come out of Japan. It never stopped coming out of Japan. We can't pretend it didn't happen. We have to deal with it. We got to gut up. It's time to stop being, I don't care, let somebody else deal with it. We got to deal with it. We got to make a noise. We got to make a stand. We got to fight for everybody's future. Everybody, your media is trying to murder everything on the planet by manipulating everybody. By the way, June 30th meeting revealed a depleted uranium storage facility burned. Now, the depleted uranium storage facilities they're talking about is it's not your typical DU. This is stuff left over from the chain reaction, from nuclear, what they call nuclear weaponized power. 1,800 pounds is what they emit there. These are catastrophic numbers, by the way. By the way, study finds giant strontium-90 released into the body of water began about 1,000 days after the reactor melted down. 1,000 days after the reactor, after 311. Graphic shows very high-level discharges for tens of thousands of days. Tens of thousands of days. There's 365 days in a year, so tens of thousands of days means the releases, even without the fission, is going to go on for a very long time indeed. This is one of the models from NOAA that was hid away for several years and then released out into the public. And that the model shows the entire ocean was covered in radioactive fallout immediately. And they're only including the cesium-137, unfortunately. Peroxide formed by seawater and melted fuel, even more likely to react with elements in the core. Not clear exactly what kind of chemicals were released. Is this why official order to halt the pumping in the seawater? Oh, it was they done seawater was to deceive everybody, and it was in desperation. Everybody that tried to put seawater were sacrificed. These people were sacrificed. This is another picture of the seawater. This was the military was sent in to pump seawater on a building that don't even exist in order to trick everybody. See, we should have brought in every academic on the planet at gunpoint to force them into that reactor. Every nuclear expert on the planet should be sacrificed immediately at this place. I kid you not. I don't want to see people die, but those who die first should be the ones who lied to everybody. And that's what everybody will be crying for in the near future, is revenge, when we should be coming up with solutions. I agree, we need revenge, but we need solutions. And sacrificing every nuclear academic on the planet would be a good start. Would be like Chernobyl on steroids. Every nuclear professor on the planet should be sent in immediately. Think about this headline. If the spent fuel catches fire, says nuclear engineer who worked at the identical plant, each reactor holds 3,450 spent fuel assemblies. So this is important because they're lying to everybody constantly. 3,450 fuel assemblies. So let's do the math. 3,450. Each assembly, say, has 65 fuel rods. And then each fuel rod is 18 pounds. So over 4 million pounds for sure. Probably closer to 5 million pounds per building. And each of the buildings are destroyed. Now, on the ground is a common spent fuel pool with 6,375 spent fuel assemblies. This is around 9 million pounds. You got to think of it, tsunami ripped out over 600 miles of the country up to 20 miles inland. So if the fuel assemblies were on the ground there, and they were in this kind of scenario, then they're gone too. This is why we see the death of the Pacific Ocean. And then we put the mass murder machine itself, TEPCO, in charge. This is the most idiotic thing imaginable. If a criminal commits a crime, do we put the criminal in charge? No. So why are we doing it here? It's because your media lied and slaughtered the whole planet by lying to you. Your media is your worst enemy. It's horrifying what they've done to us. Fukushima forecast large radiation cloud nearing California on April 11th. April 11th. Well, the jet streams only take 3 days to cross the Pacific Ocean. And so the Norwegian Institute for Air Research released that one, but that's because the plume didn't stop coming out. The latest forecast is all of California on a radiation threat shows levels as high as in Japan. And so the whole continent got hounded, and then the media come out and said it didn't happen. The media come out and said it's like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine. But yet, strawberries, mushrooms, they found cesium in it, and 5 to 6 food items in the food chain have radioactive particles. It was much worse than that. They don't want to tell you the truth, and so they tell you a little tiny bit only. When you pick up 30 million one-ton bags, in that country, I can assure you other countries surrounding it got the same doses, minimum. So in North America, we've seen one study where rain with 20 million particles of radioactive iodine-131 per liter of rainwater fell on the U.S. and Canada. 30 million. This was Simon Fraser University in Canada, by the way. And if you go back to my videos, you'll find Simon Fraser University where that person down there, Chris Starosta, I think it was that same person, or his partner, they got $6 million. And they had to spend it in 16 months, and that was $20,000 a day. And what they done was they paid off media, $20,000 a day, give media, and the media put up their story. The cover-up was extensive, and they were given leeway to cover up and lie to everybody. And people like me who tried to inform the population were arrested and hit with gag orders. So the betrayal is unbelievable, like vicious. Your universities and your media and your government position was to lie to everybody at all costs. And these people have no right to do that. That's not their job. They weren't hired. They didn't get the job to do this. Well, I guess they did, but at some point, you're all going to realize what I'm saying is 100% factual. I have nothing to gain by lying or exaggerating or misrepresenting. I'm desperately trying to inform the population, so there's nothing to be gained by misrepresenting the documentation. I'm very careful of how I present the documentation. But once again, I'm on the coastline for 75 days, and the coastline is stripped of life. And the urgency is so important that I have to speak out strongly. Norwegian Institute ends the public forecast as map shows large radiation clouds now over the U.S. and Canada, as you can see to the right. Large radiation clouds covers the entire Pacific Ocean and the continents. And they're telling you it didn't happen. At what point are you going to make a stand? At what point are you going to fight back? At what point are you going to get your act together and do the moral and ethical things? Just because you figure, well, I'm just one person, Dana, I can't accomplish anything. Well, I'm just one person. Fukushima fallout and vegetation in South Florida exceeded government's notification. So there you go, game over. If the vegetation is covered 1,000 times more, then any insects or animals or bacteria or humans or pets or anything else in that environment would have got vicious doses. And why do we have these things on our planet? Why does nuclear ever exist anywhere on our planet? How did we get to this level? Well, he lied to you for 74 years and told you it was harmless and innocuous and benign. It's such a betrayal, and that we have to fight for the future, whether you want to or not. I don't care. We still got to fight. If you're not willing to fight, others have to be informed so they have that opportunity. Because that's how the only future we have is everybody works together. Cesium-137 forecast showed high altitude radiation cloud concentrating over California and the western U.S. This is the URAD project. So there's so many institutions modeled the radioactive fallout, and there's the radioactive fallout to the right that time. This map here. See, you can pretend all you want, and you can mock me or ignore me, and you can pretend that you can't do anything, and you can't help, and you can't, but you better. You better gut up. You better start getting the voice. You better start getting educated. You better start thinking things through. You better start trying to come up with solutions. You better have a conversation. The public started to freak out. California nuclear plant engineer. We were hit by the explosion at Fukushima Unit 3. The public started to freak out. Tell colleagues what radioactive material is coming their way. Don't notify the public. Don't release initial data to officials until they're on board, until they're willing to lie. See, this is shocking. This is horrifying. How did we ever get to a position where the so-called authorities will cut everybody's throat and not give two shakes about it for a lousy job? It's disgusting. State of Arizona found iodine-131 in the Phoenix milk at levels 500% higher than the EPA top reading. This was April 22nd, 2011. But iodine-131, there's 10 times more 132, 30 times more 133, 31 times more iodine-129. They ionize and radiate your thyroid glands 9 times more effective than the iodine-131. The iodine-131 is just a tracer. And so the lies and deceptions are just inconceivable, and at some point is going to blow up in their faces. Right now, I'm just a single individual, but soon there'll be millions of us. Cesium-137 forecast for North America and Europe up to March the 24th. See, this is France's IRSN. IRSN. Calgary Sun, no need to panic, probably. About the Fukushima fallout, the rain on Canada, the government hasn't even released the data. The government hasn't even released the data. No, they're not going to. Fukushima forecast showed cesium-137 iodine over northwestern U.S. on May the 5th. So study after study showed that we had radiation throughout North America, but yet the media was out there telling you, don't worry about it, it's all okay, it never happened. And now we're in a predicament where we just lost the Pacific Ocean and all the life into it, and what's left out there is emaciated. 500,000 birds up the coast had starved to death. All the killer whales are starving to death. All the sea lions starved to death or emaciated. This is unprecedented. This is inconceivable in our lifetime that this could happen to us, but yet here it is happening to us. Florida rain had the third most at that time, April the 15th, and the fifth most iodine-132 of 72 samples. This is lies, actually, but it's more confirmation anyway, right? Tokyo drinking water unsafe for infants, and the government distributed bottled water. So you can never use those pipes again. They're irradiated. You can never drink the water. 35 million people got irradiated right there. That's what that confirmation tells you. Because you wash your clothes in it, you get showers in it, you cook your food in it, you drink it all day, and so you bioaccumulate it, and it catches up. You have 1,800 illnesses and diseases, autoimmune deficiencies, and injuries will show up long before the cancer. Cancer is the last one to show up for most circumstances, but not always the case. Leukemia can show up quite quickly. Leukemia is basically where you get a very high white blood cell count from so much radiation in your body. The white blood cells displaces the red blood cells, and this is how they identify it. 30 million one-ton bags, 120,000 of these sites, but yet there's no radioactive fallout, according to the media. Study shows multiple fuel core ejected from the reactors. So the reactor cores were ejected. Of course they were. If you look at the explosions, you can see here, that's the reactor core in the top right-hand corner of the building, sitting on the deck, right? So the whole reactor core was above all of this, and they're faking it to the right that they're in the building on the left. Radioactive particles to be concentrated over Midwest U.S. on April 1st and the 2nd. And that when you look at a single tree and 30 million one-ton bags, you start, if you understand the story, and at this point, if you watch the video, you would. And these are the victims of society we send. This is not Harvard University. This is not Yale University. This is not nuclear experts. This is not nuclear academics. These are the victims of society that can't do the job and don't have the ability and don't even understand what they're doing. This is the building. They built this building to trick people into thinking there was a fuel pool here. It's so disgusting. It's so despicable. They built it with cranes because of lethal doses to stand anywhere near that. Yeah, the whole thing is based up on I'm manipulating everybody. You abandon your community because it's like a potato. You abandon your community. It's like walking in the sunshine. You abandon your community because it's like getting on airplanes. You abandon your community because it's like sleeping next to somebody. No. You abandon your community because it's viciously deadly. And like walking in the sunshine, getting on airplanes are the lies they've been feeding you for 70 years. And see, a single isotope will destroy that child's life. And there's no way not to get a single isotope if you're there in your body. And they're checking external doses, not internal doses. This is what they done, by the way, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They checked external doses, not internal doses. They're checking external doses right here. And most of this is just meant to say, no, you got nothing, have a nice day. So when all the infrastructures is destroyed for 600 miles of the coastline, there was no way to get power to any of the reactors, the 14 reactors. And so this would make sense why we see the death of the Pacific is all the reactors had melted down. Once again, doing external dosing. It's a shocking betrayal. And I could have had a little bit higher quality pictures, I suppose, and I didn't. My apologies. Heading to sea tomorrow. It's been an extremely difficult time. Rain with 20 million particles of iodine per liter fell on the U.S. Well, there was another study showing 220 million atoms per liter in the rainwater. These numbers are just on. You couldn't even do this with a nuclear bomb. If you had nuclear war, you still wouldn't see those numbers. Previously unpublished map from government scientists show the Fukushima plume already at the Alaska coast. There's so much documentation, so much information showing us that we have to fight for our future, let alone the rest of the planet's future and the ecosystem. 30 million one-ton bags. The only reason they picked up these 30 million one-ton bags was to trick everybody, to manipulate everybody, to deceive everybody. It's really such a betrayal because they don't try to come up with solutions. They just come up with ways to trick you and deceive you and fool you. It's unbelievable how anybody could ever trust a university, how you could ever trust a media or a university, an academic again. Because even the normal academics could have spoke out, and they didn't. Nobody spoke out and said, hey, these people are lying to you. They came out. Some people came out with information, but they didn't come out and say, hey, look, here's the real truth, because they're lying to you. They just come out with the information. So even the ones that did give us information didn't challenge the mouthpieces, the deceptive, deceitful, disgusting, despicable media and universities. They're disgusting parasites, is all your universities are. They have no purpose whatsoever. That is horrifying. That is just as horrifying as a nuclear fallout to me. And to do this to the children, pretend that they're not harmed, is sickening. The people that are holding the Geiger counter most likely have no concept of what they're doing. And that was alluded to in many, many, many presentations. You're wearing radiation suits while you're looking for survivors. Because nuclear is clean and green and too cheap to meter, right? Anyway, that's all we got for today. I'll head to sea again tomorrow. It's been a long, difficult 75 days. Hopefully the next couple of months I get a break. I'm going to encourage people and remind people, please donate. I chewed through everything, all my resources, and being stuck here for 10 extra days has destroyed my resources. I picked up groceries today. We still got the fuel from when I got here originally and fueled up, so we're in good shape for that. I'm moving down the coast. I'm isolated. I'm 80 miles off the coastline of North America, off Canada. And it's a very difficult road ahead of me for the next couple of weeks. A very trying time ahead of me for the next couple of weeks. I'm going to have to use every skill I got to make it through the next couple of weeks, let alone the next 4.5 months. And when I find port again, I will need more money. So please find a way to help me and find a way to share this information. Find a way to wake this planet up. Find a way for solutions. Don't give up hope. Don't give up your resolve. Like, the most important thing that we can do for ourselves and for our friends and families and our loved ones, those who are in the know, the most important things we can do is to see this through. And the most difficult times is usually where we get our breakthroughs. And you will suffer difficult times if you chose this path with me. And I can't change that. But you will see those rewards in the future. Sacrifice everything that we have done to get to this stage. To stop now would be a betrayal. I will never stop. I will see this through. And I hope that you're able to see it through too. And if not, I understand. If not, there's nothing I can say to change that. Outside of thank you for taking the time to hear me out. And bless you. And God bless everyone and the animals and the insects. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody next time when I get a chance. Take care, folks.